Hi guys, this is Hero. How's everyone doing today? The game show. Today I'm going over a very interesting video topic, which is why Indian men, or you can generalize as South Asian men, struggle with dating in the West. Okay, this is primarily for people like in their 20s or in their dating years. If you ask any Indian man, like under 30, or you can even say under 40, but the target would be kind of like 20s and maybe very late teens, because the earlier you get, like pre-adult years, and the later you get, there's other factors involved besides like the main typical dating factors that I will discuss in this video. But if you ask if they've ever dated anybody like, of a different background in the West, right? So let's just say like a white woman or a Hispanic girl or something like that. Most likely the answer is no. Okay, and even if it's yes, it's like one person and possibly like a fluke or something, right? And yes, you could say that it's great to be selective and all this stuff, but a lot of these answers are not coming out of voluntary selectivism. Okay, if that's even a word. It's like they're involuntary, not able to proceed with certain options that they're interested in. Okay, so I'll go over in this video the reasons why and what you can do about it. Okay, and just a disclaimer, this video, it's all straight off my head. Like, this wasn't planned out or anything like that. Okay, the very first and most important reason is your physical looks. Okay, when people think of an Indian person, and most of this is completely changeable. Okay, when people think of a typical Indian person, they do not think of broad shoulders and big arms and physical dominance. Okay, they think of like scrawny little boy arms and possibly like a skinny fat look. Maybe even a little bit on the shorter side. Okay, even though height is not changeable, but you guys get the point, right? You need to do as much that is in your humanly, power to change this. Okay. I am from a mostly vegetarian Gujarati family, okay? Grew up eating roti sabji, multiple times a week. I eat non-veg, but growing up, it was very rare, okay? It's only like when you go out to eat once in a while or something like that. So from a daily nutritional standpoint, it barely even mattered. If I can get to 220 pounds by working out since I was 14, there's most likely extremely little excuses for you. Okay, and you don't even have to get to this level. You can just get to to 180, like a very healthy 180, because I'm even on a little bit of the not so lean side right now, but you can get to just 180s, 190s, like 200. 200 is usually great. That's good enough. Like you're probably a big boy by that point. Okay. So you need to do whatever you can, whether you eat meat, whether you don't eat meat, incorporate cottage cheese or, eggs if you eat eggs, or, white meat if you only eat white meat. Do whatever you have to do, but you need to prioritize this. Okay. Another thing is some people have certain stereotypical, actually, before I go on to that, your actual physical body and stuff, the shorter you are, and this is not rocket science, the shorter you are, the more this matters. But it matters more than you think, okay? When people are thinking about dating, they want to date, especially women, they want to date somebody with, to an extent, somebody they can show off to, somebody they can brag about to their friends and things like that, okay? If we're talking about purely marriage and things like that, especially when you get older and younger, like I said, there's other factors that come involved and things like that. But when it's coming to just, early 20s, late teens, that typical immature dating phase, I guess you can call it, physical, presence and physical looks are a big part. And the thing is, we have been, I believe, very falsely misled through social media and the media that, skinnier is better. And yes, it's great to have abs and things like that, right? But with a lot of dudes, and especially Indian dudes, you would benefit more rather than getting the actual leanest, possible and then, you having, 12-inch arms or whatever. Just bulk up and look like a man that, a girl wants to be with, right? Make sure your arms are a decent size, your shoulders have a decent, width and stuff like that, okay? And you don't need to work out forever to accomplish this. You just need, 1 or 2 years or whatever. And this isn't like a, working out video or anything like that. And I'm going to be very biased, but I'm telling you it's true. All the other factors, they're important, and I'm going to discuss in a second, but this is number one, the most thing. If you don't have this, it's going to be a lot harder, especially if you're not having success right now, okay? So make sure you put this at like the top of your priority list. Just do like, give this your all, like 6 days a week, push, pull, leg twice each, and get it done, okay? And I understand that height is not controllable, right? Just for transparency purposes, I'm like a little bit above average on the height, factor. So yeah, it is what it is. But, I've seen, other, shorter, Indian guys that do okay. You might not do amazing, but you got to do it, right? You got to, you can't look like, like a small boy. Okay. Another thing, okay, so that's the main priority. Okay. And like I said, society is kind of brainwashed, a lot of men, especially Indian men, to kind of adopt borderline feministic traits to appear more desirable, which it's not going to work all the time for dudes, okay? So one of the things is like to get as skinny as possible. Another thing is, but these are important, right? Like it's important to be lean and stuff like that. Now you might be looking at me and thinking, oh, you're not that lean or whatever. Well, I'm also, I've lived my, a lot of my youth, and I'm getting engaged soon. Okay, so that's that. But another thing, and these are important, but like I said, just not as important as the body thing. There's certain people that look more Indian than not. Okay, and what I mean Indian is like stereotypical Indian. If you're a brown person yourself, there's a vast variety of body types and skin tones and features and all this kind of stuff, right? But when somebody thinks of an Indian person, there's a very certain image that pops up. If you fit that image to a bill and you are having unsuccessful, results in this category, you might want to do what you can to change it. For example, for me, I haven't had too much of this problem, but in my youth, when you could say I had the opposite problem. When I was in my youth, when I was quite a bit leaner, right? I was still working out and I didn't keep any facial hair, right? And, I'd get my haircuts more frequently. I get my haircuts sometimes now, but not as frequently. I have been told, and I could somewhat agree with this, that I could pass as Hispanic, okay? I wouldn't say that's like my go-to, like when someone looks at me, oh yeah, you're that. But I could definitely pass as that, right? I didn't, versus now, especially when I have like, a bunch of scruff and I'm a little bit bulked up and things like that, like more body fat particularly, and especially when I haven't cut my hair in a while, you could definitely tell in 2 seconds I'm an Indian dude, okay? But and I don't really care anymore, right? All the people I work with are Indian. Most of my friends are Indian, including who I'm going to get engaged to, and blah blah blah, right? So I don't really care anymore. And I'm proud of my Indian look, whatever society says about it. But when you're younger and you're dating, what society says about you matters a little bit, okay? So, especially if you want success in this regard. So, you need to do whatever you can, okay? My suggestion is, besides the body thing, from a facial standpoint, make sure your hair is cleaned up. So, what does that mean? If your beard is not fully filled in or connected, like, I'll try to keep as little of it as possible. Okay, in general, case to case, it depends, I know there's, Sikhs and stuff like that. You guys can't touch your hair. That's a completely different story. Okay, but for the general masses, try to clean it up. Okay, if there's certain parts that look good, keep it, but just keep it clean. Okay, same with your hair and everything. Another physical thing. Physical matters a lot. Physical literally controls your subconscious. Okay, similar to how, if you're hungry, you're upset. And if you just had a great meal or something like that, you're in a very good mood, right? So your physical matters a lot more than you think, okay? Which is why I'm stressing on it for about 10 minutes right here, okay? Another thing, your body odor. I personally have been blessed that I don't have that much body odors. I'm saying this not to like be like, oh, I'm saying this because I haven't actually had to deal with this problem, to just be transparent, because somebody else could be like thinking that they have a really bad problem like this, and then they're like, oh, your thing doesn't work. So I don't have body odor, but what I'm saying is you need to do what you can to address it, right? Whether that means like, you know, applying something daily, religiously, whatever, right? You need to take care of it. Most of the time, you know, the typical body odor that Indian men put off, it's not that pleasant. The typical body odor any men put off, but Indian men, you know, especially in the West, they're a little bit judged a little bit stronger and things like that. For valid or invalid reasons, that doesn't matter. The point is you're getting judged and you can take care of it. Please, you're going to need to go ahead and take care of it, okay? Another thing is, actually, we'll talk about clothes more in the mental thing, right? Okay, so that was all the physical things. I'm already at 10 minutes. That was all the physical things, right? Now the emotional things. Okay, what you need to understand before I discuss this into detail, the mindset we have is very, you know, it's drawn from or derived from the mindsets our parents had, right? So you can understand in India, there's a few major differences that need to be touched upon before going into emotional mental differences. One of them is the fact that everybody's a lot closer together, okay? There's a lot more people in a house. The houses are a lot closer. Everything's just closer, right? Versus in the US, everything's a lot farther. There's a lot more house for the amount of people that live. There's a lot more land for the amount of houses, right? Everything's farther apart. From our background of having things, you know, very crowded and things like that, we tend to get very overexcited. Okay, especially when speaking to people and things like that. And there's nothing wrong with just letting loose and having fun. That's one of the characteristics that I think is great about Indian people, right? You can just, you know, without any alcohol or anything, just, you know, basically shoot the shit with your friends for like 4 hours and laughing nonstop. Right? But there's a time and a place to, you know, let that goofball energy out, right? And the time and the place is not with a woman or a girl that you are trying to court, okay, from a dating perspective, okay? In the West, you need to have some sort of groundedness, because see, in India, even when you get married, you are not like the head of the house. The head of the house are like the elders, right? Versus here, the head of the house is you, okay? So in India, you see a lot of that like stoic kind of groundedness from, you know, your grandfather or your dada or whatever you call it, you know, based off of where you're from. But you see that from that, right? And you see a little bit of it in the father too, but you see it more in the grandfather, right? However, just from basic factors in modern day, that's kind of disappearing from the young men, okay? But that is almost, over here, it's much stronger, okay, in general. Especially if you leave, like, I don't want to get political or anything, but if you leave, like, big cities or, like, heavy, like, democratic areas and things like that, okay? You see that a lot more, right? And that's kind of what's going to, just adopting that, like, grounded, you know, emotionally balanced mindset. It's not like you need to be a boring brick, like, when you talk to people. It's just, you can't be a nonstop goofball, okay, and expect to, you know, win her heart or whatever you think, right? That does not work here, okay, to an extent, okay? Another thing, a lot of people, when you think of marriage, a man and a woman in India, it's more of like, you know, how can the woman take care of me, right? A lot of kids are babies here, like Indian kids, like a lot of them are soft, okay? That is not going to translate well here, okay? They do not want a soft Indian man, okay? They want a very hard, when I mean hard, I mean like, you know, like from like a mental standpoint and an emotional standpoint, a very strong, you know, man they can look up to, not someone that they're ready to take care of, right? So that there's kind of a difference, a very strong emotional difference between the two cultures that needs to be addressed here, okay? So that's that. Mentally, okay, you need to also understand that a lot of us Indian men, we are looking, or some of us are dating to marry, okay? And honestly, for most of us, the preference would be to date to marry within our own, or for a lot of people, the preference of dating to marry is within your own community, but you don't want to just jump straight to marriage, right? But also living in the West, you have limited options of who you can date. Most of the people are not South Asian that you see every day walking around in the street. So you have to expand, right? The problem with that is that the other, more Western women who are dating to marry, not just dating to have fun and not just trying to get married immediately, that are dating to get married, most likely, like let's just say they're from a Christian background or something like that, they have options in their community, right? They have other fellow, I'm just going to use the example of Christianity. They have other, Christian people that they can talk to, or, people of their race or whatever, right? That's something you don't have, which is why you would like to explore other people outside, but they have that. So why would they pick you, right? So if they're mentally, looking for something serious and stuff like that, why would they consider you, right? So you have to acknowledge this, right? So if you're dating to marry, like you need to just acknowledge that there's absolutely nothing from that particular sense that can be done. Okay, you just have to find someone of your background and not be as picky. And this is just part of the consequence or the sacrifice that you or your ancestors chose when you guys came here. Okay, that's just a part of it. And then the people that are just dating to date, you might want to for certain superficial reasons. So you have to enhance your superficial reasons, like your body or your emotional state, right? You don't want somebody who's maybe you do, but the more you uplift yourself superficially, the more you're gonna have a chance superficially there, right? And in my opinion, there are other non-superficial benefits that come when you do things like work out and build up your physical strength and things like that, right? It affects your character dynamic in a certain almost spiritual way that carries over beyond just superficial levels. Okay, so I covered the physical, right? The physical is definitely the most important. The emotional is probably the next most important. When people think of Indian people, so not only do they not think of physically strong, they don't really think of them as like emotionally great partners. Okay, and I want to expand on this point a little bit more. So I stated the goofball thing, right? Because a lot of people are, but there's a lot of also like CEOs and things like that are Indian, and that they're not like portrayed as the biggest goofballs, right? But see, in the Indian community, we also tend to swing to extremes in this sense. Okay, either complete goofballs or complete boring, just just completely like in your head, abstract, like limited, like personal, like personality, or vibrant personality type characters, right? And I could relate to this, right? I got like a perfect score on my math SAT. Like I'm all about rational thinking and all that kind of stuff too, right? But there's a time and a place for it, and the time and the place is not when you are trying to date women in your late teens or early 20s. Okay, that's not the time and the place. And now, okay, so that I think I pretty much covered it emotionally, right? And for how to do these things, like the physical, you just need to basically just eat enough protein and work out enough. I recommended, the push-pull leg twice a week. The emotional, it's a little bit more trickier, but you need to just find a way to kind of detach from the soft kind of mojo that you possibly have been brought up with. Okay, and from a mental standpoint, I actually think this is where Indian people shine the most. Okay, but unfortunately, the mental aspect is it's a very conscious thing. Okay, not a very subconscious thing. And even the subconscious mental stuff like money and things like that, we have handled. Okay, I'm not gonna say we have handled, but Indian people, I think demographically we're the wealthiest demographic in the U.S. Right? So from a mental standpoint, we're usually pretty good. Like you value your education and things like that, and make sure that mentally everything's set for to have a partner and things like that. Okay, but unfortunately, that's not going to mask the overwhelming subconscious energies emotionally and physically that matter for dating in the West here. Okay. Again, I probably misspoke on a bunch of stuff and didn't include a bunch of stuff, but I'm at 20 minutes and I didn't prepare too well for this video. So that's that. But if you have any questions or comments, you can feel free to let me know in the comment section or email. And until next time, I'll talk to everyone later. Thank you all very, very much for watching.